Welcome back. So you have had more opportunity to think about the energy theater. Tenzin is pulling on Jamyang, and Jamyang and the cart are speeding up. So we decided that these were going to be the list of possible objects in our scenario.
Tanda nganzo nube thapten jodi galya thuchu tis mang ro ra res khansna thanda dela jamyang la tenzin gi thengyo res ra di thendu gal ani ngara chu mobo khari khari yong sir la jura ni dang dinala di ngara chu tho ma pap she res.
So what we would like you to do is we would like one group to come up, a group that is using some of these objects to tell us the energy story.
Tanda nube gi dung jora di she la ruga chi ya dun la phero nas pe ne ani mobo khari khari yume susu thapten al di shiro ches.
Would you like to come?
Kiran zu pebdo yes la dun la.
Oh, okay, we have. De kilan zu ra mobo khari khari me mo dishe gyaro chidas khari khari ves thapten na. Tenzin
is there, yeah.
Tenzin is here.
Tenzin dela res ra. Ani jamyang gi ne didi saja didi res.
Jamyang?
And the floor is over there, that side.
The floor is here.
Shala didi res ra. Ani lung gi ne jura saja di phajo di chade res.
Lund here.
We moved too much now.
Let us applaud. So we would like somebody to explain to us what you did.
Ta thanda kiran zo kharin na imba jura di ani kiran zo nang chik phe ne deshe gyaro ches.
Ta dana ngoso tamo sacha de kon tinzig sacha de kon ngoso zeji ni bat chongo ro.
So this is tenzin and there is chemical energy in tenzin.
Zeji ni ba khatu ni ngoso tsile ni gjo ni bol ngon ro bar nan jang sacha de kon.
So this chemical energy moves towards jamyang. Kharil gyu dure.
Jang sa tan gjo ni ba. Dan gjo ni ba khatu ni ngoso de mi son ni phage de shalag ni ba ngon ro. Shala.
Okay, two units move to the floor and it's converted into thermal energy.
Tene dens minni de til drag ni won ro.
And two move to the air in the form of thermal energy.
Ta de ni de gjo ni ba ngor ra gi ne de ver.
Ni gujyo rangjares and two units are still left as kinetic energy.
No, don't go. No. Does any group have any questions for our group here? Chemical energy in Tenzin. Let me see if I understood this correctly. Chemical energy goes from Tenzin to Jamyang.
And Tenzin ni Jamyang la res.
Some of that kinetic energy goes into the floor. And another unit of energy goes into the Lund.
Ani kashe khol dur law ena lung la du res.
As as thermal energy.
And twel thanda lungla dwe di tweg new res.
So, are there any questions from any group?
Ani ruga shemba ni tiwa US.
어디 갈라나 어디 아 등이야 누가 지어라 등 우천 누비 뭐만 줘 등뭐 가르치는 거라서 제일 누가는 우천 누비 뭐만 줘라 등만 줘도 가르치는 거라서
So chemical energy is changed into tweg new sunba. Buju new ba. Zegi new di buju new la tu gala ni khari unit to res ra. So chemical energy is converted into kinetic energy. So through what it's like it moves into.
Through which mechanism does it become?
Urim do TUS. Okay, can I get to a console? So his question is for this group.
No, I understand. I want to understand his question.
Khari gyu lana ra. Urim khari gyu lagi US.
아기 키에버도 리파 로라 다 맞은 누가 지 누비 뭐만 로라 들어도 간제 가는 줄 로라 지 로라 배편에 계속 봐 로라 나가 줄 로라 다다 맞은 누가 누비 로라 들 계속 봐 로라 나가 줄 로라 다 맞은 누가 누비 로라
Gilam shivoda.
아저라 하파샤
Gilam de re. Gilam kai through which medium?
Through which object or through which mechanism?
He is asking like when we throw stone, so it has to go through the air. Air is the medium. Likewise, when energy flows from one form to another, through which medium does it flow?
나는 느낌 뭐 로지 가는 제지 니바 걸어와 제지 니바 걸어 주차디 소모 걸어 연구심이 니바로 같이 쓰여들어 여에서 그 연구심이 니바데 프랑시 연구면 계속 마도 맨데 지분이 계속 놀아는 게 나가지 이거 나기 상황이 말이야
Seven units of chemical energy, and likewise there were no energy left on that place. So does it mean that there is no chemical energy later on? Like before cooling, like tenzin is respiring, right? So during that also chemical energy is converted into heat, right? So
조지 니바다 기 좋아 제기 니바다 같은 조지 니바다 너무 좋아 그래요 그럼 대로 저지 니바다 근데 영무 제바다 되는 절 제거라. 영무 제바다 절 제거에 한번 제지 니바다 절 영무 니바 근데 영무 제는 되는 절 지수 거다. 오케이. 나 퍼서 저 주제 니바다 그래나.
This is a wonderful question that he's asking. If we say that a form of energy, a unit of energy, turns from chemical energy in one object to kinetic energy in another object, we need to be able to say, how did it go from one object to the other object?
Tiope abu dos kranzo karshes lana thangbo zegi nubani jela ani gujo nuba chare lagi ras di ngobo chik ni ngobo shemba la nuba dre di khandes tugu yore lan tio le sons di tio di abu dos.
How does Tenzin turn his some of his energy into kinetic energy for Jamyang?
Ta Tenzin gi korang gi nuba khari yore khasheji thande zegi nuba khasheji ani gujo nuba la jur ras di khandes jur res.
What is the force story answer to that question?
Ta tanda anzu gi nube gi dungjuya di gi gyuni len gya wainas. Konda shuki gyuni shuki dungjuya di pejo chine ani di chi wainas len gya wainas. So can you repeat the question?
Yes. The other class is having a very good time debating.
Ta zinga shemba dinala ta se shu tang de shas tizo ya utang de shas kuzo.
My question was, how does Tenzin's energy go from Tenzin to Jamyang?
Ni tiwa di kharala na Tenzin gi nuba jura. Tenzin ne Jamyang la khandes tugu yores. Tenzin ki nuba jura Jamyang la tugu yores lagura nuba thanda chik ni pha dujo te ra di khandes tugu yores. Because Tenzin is pulling Jamyang.
So Tenzin is pulling Jamyang and Jamyang is moving.
Tenzin ki Jamyang thingi yores. An cheza an Jamyang yogu gujo tangi yores.
If Jamyang was not moving, then there would be no kinetic energy in Jamyang.
Kisi Jamyang gujo matang wainas Jamyang la gujo nuba diyo mares.
If this is Jamyang and I'm Tenzin, there is no energy that goes from me to Jamyang.
The Quran stomachs Tenzin imba chashas, Quran Jamyang imba chashas. Tenso di tendu Quran gujo tang masa dilo de ni Jamyang la ni yogu gujo nuba yo mares.
Jamyang is not moving, no kinetic energy units.
Dilo du Jamyang gujo matang du kola ani gujo nuba gi thanda seshi jua di yo mares.
But if Tenzin is pulling on Jamyang and Jamyang moves,
Kesi Tenzin gi tendu Jamyang gujo tang wainas.
Then energy goes from the shoving action, not from just the energy, but not just from the force, but the force and the movement.
Le ten jura shuk de chiku maim bache shuk da gujo tang do di niga ge ani nuba di chagu res tungu res.
So that is an answer to your great question.
Ta kerangi tiwa di len di res se ucha se.
So
다른 데서 여러분 고리는 제조로 또 코로나 자야로 버려야지 다른 데 타버기 슈퍼 키워를 이 슈드냐 버려야지 또 그러면 슈드 냐이나 슈드 몇 번인데야 아니 뭐 하나씩 정도 수준이 집어로 차이도 있어 나 그런 거는 이게 뭐 하나씩 제시해 안에 가서 손을 주고 있어
Chipa tungu dusra shuk da nuba niga. So he feels when Jamyang pulls Tenzin, so he feels that the force and the energy, these are not separate entities. I feel that these two are same.
they are not the same because shuk is an interaction between two objects.
Nuba da shuk ni chikpa mares. Shuk la du gala ani pensu dewa yongwe ngobuni dende chagi res.
Energy is something that an object has.
Nuba la di ngobo chikla yowe ani dende chilsi res.
But energy can be transferred from object to object through the pulling of through shuk and through movement.
Ta thanda nuba jigera ngobo chikni ngobo shemba la dwe jura di khande stugur la waina chik shuk gyura shuk dang yogu yura dinika ge ani yongu res.
Let us thank this group, and we want one more group.
Ta Quran sola tuje nang shue yis digi jelan ruga shemba yangyo chik phero nas ruga shemba
So can we have one more group?
ta ruga shemba ji duin la phero nas nubadi. So when energy transfers from one object to another, does it mean that this object has lost its energy? Is there less energy in this object, in the first object?
So you remember this energy theater from yesterday?
Ni kesa tanda nubegi tanda chapdin jura dinal di ting dos.
Here, the object is moving fast, is slowing down, and is stopping.
Ngobu di tangbo gozu du jogu dugu yores anjel thero jone ani gag dos.
So it has 5 kinetic energy units here, but it has 0 kinetic energy units there.
Ani tangbo gozu ra di chu du gala tanda gujo nubadi ta oina cheshinga yores. Jela dele du gala khari lana legor chagi yores gujo nubadi seshi di.
So the kinetic energy went down.
Dila du gujo nubadi macha res.
Where did that kinetic energy go?
Gujo nuba machar lara gujo nuba di khawala do res. Hola, trigger nuba la. It is
Thermal energy.
it is changed into thermal energy.
Change into thermal energy. So whatever one lost, the other one gained.
Dila du gala chik di ma meo chara shimba jile roas. Chik show ina chik le thoba di chag dos.
So, do we have one more group, or should we move to a next?
Ta ruga shimba ji du la phege yana shimba muthuni nang gu res. Tanda thabdun di nang hin yue ruga. Yangyo chik. Yeah. Okay, their group wants to.
Let's ask them which ones are the objects.
Ngobo khari me ondi kya tishe gyaru chida sa. Ngobo khari. The tensile. Okay, this represents tensile. Okay, this is the floor. This is air. So we are at this energy is in tensile now. This is our act.
Very good, thank you. So, would you please explain it now to us? Can you do it again and explain it?
Kya tu chik nang ne an tishe gyaru chida asra.
So, you all started as chemical energy in Tenzin.
다 당보 고추도 계란수이 단다 댄진 낭로 제기 누바데네 고추 로스.
You turned into kinetic energy in Tenzin.
킨주 댄진 낭로 유기 아니 계란수 가리 줄라나 구조 누바라 줄 소스.
Then, because Tenzin was moving,
가이스나 댄진 요구 치기 로스.
then kinetic energy from Tenzin moved to kinetic energy of Jamyang.
제라 아니 댄진 기 구조 누바디 콜 줄 라와이나 요구 구조 다니 델 자미안 알토레스. Okay, there's one energy left over there.
There's one energy left over here. What energy?
Thermal energy.
Thermal energy in Tenzin.
Tenzin nangla treg nuba de roas.
Tenzin got hot from pulling.
Tenzin gi the roas, the ne ani treg nuba de roas.
And you turned into kinetic energy in Jamyang. And then from kinetic energy in Jamyang, you went to the air and to the floor.
The dijal jamyangi thand guju nuba jora. Dine ne ani long la do ani long jeli ani shala la do roas. Long ni shala la do. But there's a difference in number of units. Shala de la manga So in terms of unit, there is more energy units in the floor as compared to air.
And you turned from kinetic energy to thermal energy in the floor and in the air.
The shala lidu da ani long la do gala treg nuba la jur roas. The pujo nuba ni treg nuba la jur roas.
A very nice energy theater as well.
Kiran so ye thanda nube thabden dia bo pen nang sons.
So the big questions when we were drawing force diagrams was what are the objects that are interacting with my object of interest?
Ta thanda ngazu namju shugiri muthiyo. Di shugiri muthiyo gapso ngazu thanda tunang chisa ngobo jora ngobo shimba khari nyamdo phenju dewa chadu di taku yures.
So for instance here we identified three objects.
Ta thanda di nedang dina cha shawaina ngobo khaju ngwezin thuyor lawaina sum yures dina.
But in the energy theater, the planet Earth did not play any role at all.
In a nube thabden yora dina la ngazu sa say kola digi ke thabden dina la chashi le mares.
This force over here did not play a role.
Thagana shi di shala inne chdo digi ani keguji thanda thabden dina la chuyo mares.
This force over here also did not play a role.
And thagana shi phajo shuk jdo di yang thanda shuk wo dina shi gangde ani thabden dina la chuyo mares.
As the Jamyang was moving, this force over here was responsible for turning energy from Tenzin into energy for of Jamyang.
Ta thanda di shuk jdo di Jamyang Tenzin ki Jamyang then shuk digi nuba chik ni Tenzin ni Jamyang dre di chires.
And as Jamyang was moving, it was this force that was taking energy out of Jamyang into the floor and the air.
Di shuk jdo digi ani Jamyang ni nuba thanda shala la dre da lung la dre jura di shuk digi chires.
Strictly speaking, only to the floor.
Di ma tak da roji shio ina khol dugur la na shala rang la dugur resti.
If we had a little force friction with the air, then it would be that one that would be responsible for taking energy out into the air.
Kesi darshu jura lung da darshu chimbu jio ina ta di ni thanda shuk then jura lung chol dre di ani gain di cha de res.
So, in this scenario, we have a lot of pulling, a large force. Here we have a small force.
Ta thanda nedang dina ta waina Dina cha shoina shuk chewa gyayores. Dela ani shuk chunga yores.
How would your energy theater, the energy theaters that we saw, how would they be different?
Ta tanda nibe chabden chigro. Dinde chiwa ina koranil keba hande dures.
Why don't you discuss this in your whiteboard groups? We just saw this energy theater. How would this energy theater be different?
Ta tanda nganzo chabden chigyo jura ngola. Di chagyo roas. Di dan dewa chagyo res. Ta tanda kesi chabden niba ji chiwa ina khandes kugo res. Di da dini keba khari chagyo res.
So we're going to give you 2 minutes to discuss with your groups how are the energy theaters, how would the energy theaters be different?
Ta nibe chabden dila chasa roa. Di rodi niba dila sewa inas ani keba khari res. Di keran zo ruga nanglo penju chodur nanglo ches kama ni yes.
What are your ideas?
Keran so samju khari yes ta. So your question is like in the first situation there is more force, in the second situation there is less force. So you are asking about the change in energy, right?
Change in the energy theater, yes.
Nibe thabde law yo khari duge me di res. So there are a lot of changes in these two situations in our energy drama. So in the second situation, like before, there were 2 energy units which was going into the air and 3 towards the floor. And in the second situation, there is only 1 energy unit which goes into the air and 4 units goes into the floor. Zig nubang al ha de res. Tseshi chazang gyo doyo mari laura tseshi nga yo waina ani. Ta zig nubang ni ne khari yo di rangja deer laura. Gyur yo mares ra. Chazang doyo samana kashil ha laura. Okay, so the energy, chemical energy, since there is less force here, all the chemical energy is not transferred into Jamyang because we are applying less force.
So that's a great idea. Since Tenzin is not pulling as hard,
Ta thanda kyan jo samshu de yabu dos Tenzin gi ngwen da durwa na shukshiras di do thingi yo maras ngwen thangbo de do.
for the same distance that Jamyang covered in these 2 situations,
Ta yang ta khagas thin la jara di khurani ga thangbo da nioni ga chikba thin res tharing le de.
fewer chemical energy units turned into kinetic energy units here and moved into Jamyang.
Ta dinala zegi nubat khashiji kharil gyur lawaina hujo nubal ju res and di khol ro lana jamyan ro res.
Tenzin will not be as tired at the end of this than at the end of that.
Ta dini nedan ni dita waina tenzin di nedan la digas thangching mares kang da dur wainas.
Less energy would have left Tenzin here than here.
Didan dini dur wainas Dina la tenzin ne ani nuba nyunga ta res.
Since Tenzin lost less energy, Jamyang gained less energy.
Tenzin ne nuba nyunga shorer la waina jamyang la thobe jora nuba nyunga thobe res.
And that energy that Jamyang gained went into the floor, into the air again.
Ta jamyang nuba thobre la ra di nuba di khol ro la waina lungda shala la dor la di chabe ros.
Good, very good. So you see how we are actually getting into thinking like energy.
Ta ngaran su thungu do aste thabdun chi chi ngaran su ta nuba di chigni shimbal khol dugu me samlo nube thon ran samlo tang thugu do as.
By having us become energy, we have to make the decisions that energy makes.
Dila duwa nganzo susu khari thabdu khari chungu yorla na khanda nuba chungu yora. Dila du nuba di khol dugu me da khari chungu me di susu rangi thaju chi gu res.
Of course, energy is a non-physical thing.
Nuba la di ta suk me jor dinde roz chagi ros.
And so we cannot see, touch, feel energy.
Dila du suk yo mar la du gala ngazo regya da chorya da dinde yo mar ros thong thu mar ros nuba di.
We observe the indicators of the presence of energy.
Ine nuba yume jora di chunje yo da dun chinge dil tan la thu yo res nuba yume di.
We observe the speed of Jamyang.
Manzo khari thunang cher la waina tanda jamyang gi yogu chi gyose jora di gyose de ni manzo thunang chi res.
At the end of the race, Jamyang's speed is not as high as Jamyang's speed here.
Ta thamata du gala jamyang gi gyose jora ngwenda dur waina dil the res digas gyogu yo mares ne dang thambu da dur waina.
So Jamyang's kinetic energy, which we cannot see, is going to be less here than in this situation.
Ta nganzo gi thong thu yo mares jang gi gujo nuba jora ine jamyang gi gujo nuba di kang da wo di dur waina wo de chunga yo res.
Okay?
Seo chases.
So once again, we have to ask, what are the relevant objects?
Ta nganzo thuwa di khari tang gu yor la waina di dan dewe ngobo khari khari chag du la jora di chugu go res.
What are the relevant forms of energy?
And thang shi di dan dewe ani nuba khari khari dewa chag du slan di ha ko go res.
And what does that energy do?
An nuba di khari chigi yo me di she go go res.
Does it stay in a given object and change form?
Ngobo thagarang la de ni ani korang gi ngo juro du du es nuba di.
Does it transfer to another object?
Yana ngobo chigni ngobo shemba la pro du es.
Or does it just stay in an object and do nothing?
Yana ngobo thagarang la de ni khego ji machini ne de jora din de chigi du es.
And so if I am to put a production of energy theater and I am going to pay actors to do this, I am not going to pay people who will not be important in the play.
Dila do ta nube thabdun la thabdun ji chedu gala kisi thabdun badin so langi gita di laja rote gu yunas ani chego mewa yora da dinala dinde yimba ina khunzu langi laja te gu yo marwas di thabdun dinal chego koran zo thabdun chego ende ke mewa ina khunzu la laja te gu mares.
So for instance, the floor has thermal energy because it has a temperature.
Ta tanda be shawainas shala di cha shawina koran la chaje yores ra tanda nube issue di yores kais na ngazu nube tanda chaje ta waina shala dil chaje yores.
But I'm only choosing to depict, to show the units of energy that become thermal energy, not the other units that are just there and do nothing.
Tanda nganzo I khari tyungugurla na thögi nuba yorlan tönra dila dugala thögi nuba chungi gi tanda cheshi jora di tyungugures tabdena.
Okay. So we are going now to think about a different scenario.
Ta nedang shimbaji thola ni samlo tangugures.
And this different scenario comes in two acts.
Ta tanda nedang minda dila ni tabdu ni chagures dila.
we are going to show you the two acts together, but we are going to split them.
The tabduni the nyamdo doing is in a niga logashinis. Kagaswini tabduni.
And we are going to concentrate first on the second act.
Tanganzo tunang che di karil chigurlana tabduni yura, tabduni badil tunang chigurures.
So would you like Brycela to show us?
Sure. I'm not going to show you because it's more fun not to do that. If you take these guys and you put them down on your table, and then they'll see what happens.
Tango bosh do akuran chala. Di tanda industry ma di chiba inasra kyo di chinang do da di do ba nani kiran so kyo har do di siro chis.
So you can work with these in your whiteboard groups.
The karbangi tanda karban chik chik pejo chin ruga soya tharan ruga kiran so nyam nang ro
So if you have a whiteboard in your hand, I'll throw you one of these.
Put them on your table.
kiran so tanda mo bosh nang so chokse gal sharo chis.
One for whiteboard.
Put them on your table,
Chokse gal sharo.
not on the whiteboard, on your table.
Tanda chik nang so di jel tanda karbang gal ma sharo chis chokse gal shada sa mo bodi. Tanda di peju chesh to rugan nal kusho nga thu khazu yo ne rere gi nangro chesti susurang nyong gu res ta jedi
Okay, so you all have experience now of using this.
o ta kiran zo changme tanda di peju chini nyong le ro samai
The scenario has two parts, two acts.
ta tanda di ne dang jura dila ani chashe ro che na ni res
One, the first part is when this toy is still touching the table.
ta tanda chashe ni yor la chashe thangbo di khari chagir la na di cheche shdo di ani chokse gal jawe thu e gap su res thangbo di
And then it snaps and it jumps off the table.
di jel hopta me phargi do as chokse ni
So the second part of the act is after it has snapped while it moves up.
ta chashe ni ba jura di khari chagir la na chokse ni ya phardu gala chokse dada lo cha sa jel ra ya lung la pharu gap su di chagir res ne dang di
So we are going to think about the energy theater. What is the energy story in the second act? After the toy has snapped and while it moves up like this.
ta ni ba jura chashe ni ba di khar la na chokse ni ya phar sa jel ra di lung la phar di da di gap su ani ne dang di khiran jo semba na sha gu res
Okay? So go for it.
ta nibe thab de jua tanda chashe ni wa gal samlo tang ro chis di
Discuss this in your groups.
ruga nang lo le khiran jo thodur nang
Okay, in order to tell the energy story, after the object has left the table and while it's moving up until it gets to the highest point, what questions should I be asking myself?
Why does it jump up?
So I could ask, why did it jump up? But somehow it did jump up. And now it's no longer touching the table and it's moving up. What questions will I ask myself?
At what height this object will jump?
What height this object will jump? Sure. But what do I need to tell the energy story?
Okay, elastic energy.
So you're saying I need to think about the forms of energy that are present in my story.
Yes.
Okay. So I need to know what the monks are going to be units of what kind of energy? What other things do I need to decide?
So we have to think about kinetic energy.
So I need to think about the forms of energy. What are the forms of energy? But I need to think about the stage. So what do I need to decide about the stage?
We need objects.
Right. What are the objects that are important in my story?
The table.
The table is not touching during this part of the scenario. We are only doing the part.
The area between the.
Okay, the air. What other objects do we need to think about?
The lung che ani shemba ngobo khari samlutang bu res. Shu kejek chimas ngobo. Okay,
This toy is an object, sure.
The dia ngobo chai roastic.
This toy, lund. What other object do we need to think about?
The ngobo la dugala chik lung she roas chik di che ani ngobo shemba khari res. Say kola the earth.
And the earth. Okay. So we need to think about the toy, the earth, and the air.
Tangaranzo khari samlo na shagu urlana.
And we need to think about what are the forms of energy in each object at the beginning of the drama and at the end of the drama. Okay, Let's discuss this with your groups.
An di keran zu ruga na la thodur nang ro ches.
Okay,
Ola so gela so.
this is a diagram of the stage here. This is a diagram of the stage here.
Thanda di remove sten shado. Di remove di khari chungu la na dingcha di chungu res.
So let's think about what forms of energy I need my monks to be. Where am I going to put my monks and in what forms of energy?
Ta thanda thabden singe kusho den zo nube ri khari image ra ngo khari ime di ani kho khol shagu res dingcha din. Thabden sidu gal yora kindi badin zo nube ngo ri khari cha de res ra ngo khari na yo res thang shi kho khol shagu res. So there is a kinetic energy.
So kinetic energy, because the toy is moving.
Gujo nuba yorishe ras kharsin lana thanda di cheche di gujo dang yoras.
I'll write with a K, kinetic energy.
Ta di like igi ke chimbu chida di khari chungor lana kinetic energy gujo nuba di chungu yoras.
This is one monk that is a kinetic energy monk.
Ta di kusho genduba chik chungu yoras. Gujo nuba yoge kusho chik di chungu yoras ke chik di.
What other forms of energy?
Ani nube rik shemba khari yoras. Chemical energy. Chemical energy.
Chemical energy. Do I have food or do I have fuel in this scenario?
Ta dina la ke je shoy na ra nedang dina la se la na samal la na di yore yana physe yores dina. Kinje zegi nuba shera zegi nuba la du ta di nedang dinang lo la se ngonzo imba na se samal lai ra dende yore yana physe yores. Physe. Okay. There is a fuel.
What fuel do I have?
Physe khari yores ta. Büyük bata füze So what is fuel?
Fuel is gasoline.
Tanganzo sanum da dende pheju chiya petrol leya dende rig the rest.
Do I have dal? Do I have momos?
Ni momo yo res dinala. The troship zisha yo dende yo res dinala. No.
Dal and momos were important in the previous thing that we did.
Dal da momo inte cha shaoina se da samana ras din ne da ngoma dina cha de ras.
Because the energy associated with momos was what actually gave Tenzin the energy that he needed to transfer to Jamyang.
Dile do momo da dende yo aina dal yo aina sera di nubadigi ani Tenzin gi Jamyang thentu ros.
For us, the toy is already moving, and it's moving up and slowing down.
Tanda nganzu ne dang jo nibadi dina indu tanda cheche dingun thangbu khura ningun su ni yogu che gozuk sares. Ra chose di shan la do gujo tani pharra dinyi ni gujo tani gozuk sares. So there is thermal energy.
There is thermal energy, sure.
I
will write it with a red pen.
Tregi nubala ra tregi nubal chunje ni di nyugu mau di pheju che is. And elastic energy is also there.
Elastic energy, okay.
Nargum ke nuba diyo reshe raschi.
So, why don't you put K monks, D monks, E monks and any other kind of monks that you need in here to tell the energy story.
Ta nibe tabdun nibe dung di she gu yora di she du gala thanda tabdun chinge gendu ba den zu chag yora khashi gi gujo niba chung yora khashi gi ani treg niba khashi narkum niba chung yora thande di gal nibe gya gu na khari khari go na den zu sangma an dengchen al ma tero chis
I will help you.
ani stamadis khorangi khanan zul robo chugos
The toy is moving.
cheche do di gujo tang yoras
So I have to put some kinetic energy monks here.
di la du cheche di gujo tang du gala gujo niba di yoras gujo niba kusho khashi stel sha gu yoras
What happens to these monks?
ta gendu ba den zul khari chung yores gujo so they have kinetic energy
So the monks are kinetic energy.
kusho denzo kuranzu rang ani thanda gujo niba chung yores kuranzu gujo niba res thanda thabde na
A little while later, how does the speed of the toy compared to the speed that it had earlier?
ta tis chela ta oina thuzu ra thuzu gal ta oina moi thangbo go chuk du da jes la ni gyose ju ra cheche di gyose la kheba khari du res theru du res it slows down
Slows down. Therefore, a little while later, I cannot have 4 kinetic energy monks in here.
ni la du tis chela ni theru du res sun ra di imba ina moi la khazu yo nang shi gujo ni ba jura di nyung du ras du ina yes
So, let's say this kinetic energy monk is not going to be in the toy later.
ani jesu thanda di gujo ni ba sunge chdo di cheche dina yo mare la ras
Telling the energy story means that I have to be able to tell you where this monk is going to go.
ta thanda gyose chagir la ra gujo ni ba ma chagir la du gala di gujo ni ba di duguras di draw in a call do rest sa into the air lung dir into the air dela say kolala lung la ra into the air this goes into the air
So this one is going to go into the air. Why does it go into the air?
di lung la dugure she ro sa chik de kharchin dugu rest lung because it rubs with the air
It rubs with the air, so it is going to go into the air.
lung la dargi ras cheza ani di lung la du ras gujo ni ba di
So it's going to go into the air like we have done before, right?
ngola na ne la chego di che ra di do ras ta thanda gujo ni ba di pha lung la du ras
And then after it is in the air, it is going to do what?
ta lung na du ra lung na do sa jala di gujo ni ba di khar chig res it changes into thermal energy
Okay. So I told the story of this kinetic energy monk.
ta ngi gi gujo ni ba kusho di gi dung she ras thanda
What is going to happen to this kinetic energy monk?
ta kusho di ra gujo ni ba di gi khar chig res dil khar chung res ya this jala ma du res so this one also goes into the air after some time
And then it turns into thermal energy.
dia thanda lung na dro ani di thanda gujo ni ba di treg ni ba gyur gur was yes
And this does the same, I assume.
dia thangbong na yel ni dro sa di dro dan shi du was
And then this one does the same.
jala dia chik pa chi was dro dan de
So now the toy is empty of kinetic energy.
che zan ta di che che jura di la gujo ni bal hang ma res ra tong ba chag was
Is this the story that we are telling?
ta di ngam zo dung she go di res yes
Okay, so now imagine that we do this experiment again, but in the tower where there is no air.
ngoi la nga zo khangba juya dina lung changma ten sar le khangba jura nima taje chi sa juya di khangba di na mar ki wainas taje thagarang chi wainas.
No air in the tower, no air on the floor.
Hodi taje khang jura dinang la lung yo marwas lung gi thanda dingjana ni ma pi so thab den ni lung di ma pi is.
The toy moves up and slows down.
Cheche di ya phar ne ani thero durwas.
What happens to this kinetic energy monk?
Ta phagi taje khang juya dina imbaina cheche di phar ne ani thero durwas dinang la ani thanda di gujo nyube ku shu jura khura la khari chungres. Say tenshu la dures. Say tenshu la dures. So it goes into Earth's tenshu la. Tenshu la dures. It goes into say tenshu nuba. It changes into the energy of gravitation.
So, are you telling me that I need a new form of energy?
Manju ito nuba sao jugur lagu res. Khari Sony nuba. So he's saying it changes into potential energy. He said.
I'm not sure what that word means.
Ta thanda thangi judo Sony nuba la di dinga seuji hagu mundus.
Do we need a new form of energy?
Ta dina la thanda nube gi riksawa jugu res dina. Gugu yes, we need.
Do we all agree that now I have 4 monks, a little while later I need to have 3 monks, a little while later I need to have 2 monks, 1 monk, no monks?
Thanda taje shto di draw imbainas ta thanda thangbo go chudu gala gujo nuba shi res kusho shi antis jala sung chagres ti jala ni chik lebor chagrela ni khana jumutu us into res.
And I do
He
not
said
have
no.
No.
So in that chamber there is no decrease in kinetic energy. It will be constant. Kinetic energy. There is no change in kinetic energy. It will be constant because there is no air.
We saw that when the ball and the feather were dropped in that tower, the ball and the feather went faster and faster and faster and faster.
Tak anju taje chhe kapsu polo dida charu dilu roas ledu ma rodu kala gyoro du doas.
So it makes sense to me that if I took the ball and the feather and I threw them up, they would go up and they would move slower and slower and slower.
Tadi ma gyoro dur la aina thanda charu da polo ni ka ya yu aina ya thero du roas thoro du di. No, it won't slow down. Samshu dila do beta thanda darshu da dinde khebu jiyo mares lawra. So he said when that toy has that force and there is no force, frictional force which is resisting it. That's why it keeps on moving.
Okay. That is a very productive way of thinking. Let's go with that way of thinking.
Ta kirangi samlo tangdan di yapu shu tangshas tangjo jiradi.
So Gela says, oh, we have another idea. Are you responding to this idea?
Quran da dewe do chagi res, Quran la yalen do jire res.
Or is it a different idea?
Quran ge shebadi. Okay, he said he didn't hear what he said. He has a different opinion.
Would you please stand up? so that everyone can hear.
Kela kerangi samsui di shega shidasa sindala.
Wait, how can you have a different opinion if you didn't hear what he said? Wait, hold on. I want to ask him that. wait, hold on.
Kerangi karisho di kominani. Kerangi samsui logan dan kadilatu. Kerangi shio di komasu sura. Kerangi shio di karim badi hama gona kerangi samsui di mindawa in kandis latu yosa.
Oh, wait. Listen. Amchok.
Ni shimba she sura ge lagi. Ade ko aj mangona shimba imba kandis latu res.
We thought about the tennis ball going up and the tennis ball coming down.
Ngola ngzo tawju chira di thing do sa ngzo polo se u jyo tennis se di polo di ya yu ma sa chi gyo ta chi chego ji chiro as ngzo.
So the tennis ball going up, we said there was the gravitational force on the ball by the earth.
Ta thanda tennis polo jora di ya ma yuk du gola thanda tennis polo dila sai thinshu yo res sai thinshu ji ge yo res polo di gan di she ras.
And as this was going up, a teeny tiny monk put his hand out and the air was pushing it down. This is the frictional force on the ball by the air.
Ta dine ya lung chol ya du da dine droy gap su la ba ma kya wa na lung sur gur la sa di lung sur du lung gi thanda shu di ya ge yo res polo di gan tar shu di.
And we also drew the force diagram for the object as it was going down. This is the same force as this.
Thanda shi ngobo ji ma sa we gap su thanda shu gi rimud thi wa na di da ding chik ba chai res.
And as this comes down, a teeny monk puts his hand out and the lund is pushing on the hand that way.
Thanda shi ma yong gap su polo di gala mi ji sha wa na la ra ku sho ji sha wa na chun ji seni lan pe ju sha so di ndu kurang gi la ba di kya wa na ma ro du gala lung di khol da bur la na to so da bura ya da bi res.
So in the tower, what happens to these two forces?
Ta thanda lung me se gi thanda ta ji khang jora di khang ba na cha sha wa na di shuk ni la khari chung res. It will be 0.
It will be 0. It will be 0. And so when the object is moving up, is there a net force on that object?
다 뭐보디 야 두고라라 야 조이나 뭐보디를 장수 요르스 Yes, it has.
So it is in the net force is in the opposite direction to the way that the object is going.
장수 주요라 디 뭐보디 야 두고라 조에 초라 도바요르스 장수디
What will the object do?
다 딘데 임바이나 뭐보디 가르치기레스
Speed up, slow down, or move with constant speed?
다 장수디다 디니 야 조에기 초 가져주라 도바르라라 디 인두갈라 뭐 단다 뭐보디 랑자 요새 대가랑 두래 야나 교로 두래 야나 테로 두래 스피처스 테로 두스 it slows down.
It slows down. It slows down. So, if it slows down, then fewer kinetic energy monks are going to be in this part of the floor. And so we're going to stop here so that you can go and have dinner at 5. But I want you to be thinking, what happens to these 4 monks? Because at the end of the story, these 4 monks are not going to be kinetic energy in this box.
근데 야파르니 두고르라도 테로 두고르라도 잠샤르라오라 딜라도 당보 고죽도 요 고요 네버기 탄다 쳔게 쿠쇼 시요로스 고죽도 시요레스 타마델라 디 시디요 마로스 안디 카르치 딜라 카르 중고 이메조라 디토라 삼로 땅로 체스 아니 이네 탄다 투즈디 샬라 투즈 심샤스 이네 계란 좀 페두갈 디토 삼로 땅로 체스 당보 고죽도 시요레스 타마 메와 차이다 딜 카르 중고 이메
Good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.